In 2001, nearly half a century after the overwhelming success of Walt's Disneyland Park, the company would release its sequel, only for their diehard fans to tear it to shreds.
It was kind of like an open secret that everyone knew that it was kind of like this bastard sort of theme park compared to Disneyland.
People would always complain. It's like, oh man, this place there's nothing to do.
It was kind of a cartoonish interpretation of California. Critics blew it out of the water.
From its construction to budget cuts and lackluster performance, today we take a first-hand look at the grand opening of Disneyland's second theme park and discover a long-lost relic of the past. Look at this. Oh my god. This is the history of Disney's California Adventure 1.0. When Disneyland opened back in 1955, expansion was not at the forefront of their minds. The park was a long shot. There wasn't time to plan for future developments. Following the opening day of the happiest place on Earth, Disneyland would eventually find its footing, and as time went on, the company shifted to bigger and better things. The 1964 World's Fair, the Florida Project, Tokyo Disneyland. With decades of creating world-class themed experiences under their belt, it was about time they returned to their roots. As discussions began in the early 90s, a handful of proposed locations for a second park in Southern California were thrown around. The most sensible and, more importantly, cost-effective would be to use the existing space within their Disneyland property.
Disney's California Adventure is kind of the result of a perfect storm. Not a great storm, but a perfect storm in that case. And this was a direct result and product of the Michael Eisner era, which we, affectionately call the Eisner era, the Disney decade of the 1990s. And when he joined the company, it was not rainbows and sunshine at the Walt Disney Company. They were really doing poorly in the animation department, and it's Michael that is credited for kind of that second renaissance with Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, just kind of these IPs that we just can't imagine today without.
The box office success of these films would, in part, help fund projects at Disney's theme parks. First, with MGM Studios in Florida, countless additions to existing parks around the globe, and then Euro Disney. It was the company's first major attempt at a European excursion, and it would end up costing them upwards of $4.4 billion.
What we call Disneyland Paris today, but originally Euro Disney. And this kind of just bled the company dry. But regardless of that, Disneyland Resort needed to expand.
Disneyland president Paul Pressler, Michael Eisner, along with Imagineers, would begin planning this future park's layout and offerings, with the mindset that this new theme park would be more adult-oriented, similar to Epcot over on the East Coast. And in the summer of 1998, Disney would break ground on the largest expansion in the resort's history, transforming their 85-acre parking lot into a second theme park. See, in 1998, Disneyland Park took up approximately 75 of the original 160-acre property purchased back in 1953. The rest at the time was still a dedicated parking lot, as well as the newly acquired Disneyland Hotel, formerly owned by the Rather Corporation, making the decision to use this property and build a parking garage pretty easy. It would take almost 3 years to develop the former parking lot into a fully fledged theme park. The construction did create a bit of a hassle, as the Mickey and Friends parking structure did not open until 2000. The first few years left many cast members and guests visiting Disneyland having to make the long walk from nearby parking lots, but at least they had something to look at once they got there.
One of the interesting things that they did when the park was being built, they built this scaffolding in the promenade area. For the first 2 years, it was just a big, huge pile of dirt, because they were doing all the infrastructure underneath. The neat thing was that this was like a 3 or 4 story scaffolding that was not only just open to cast members, but any guest who was there could walk up it and kind of look at the progress of the park as it was being built.
They even had animated diagrams pointing out where certain rides or landmarks would be. Not only that, but the Disneyland monorail was still up and running during this time too.
When DCA was actually first being built, the monorail would still come through here, and you'd be able to get like a sneak peek into the construction. This was one of the things I remember seeing first and getting super excited for.
If only theme park vloggers existed in the late 90s, what a goldmine of construction updates this would have been. It's during this time that Disney would start to share more info about the park, details on its rides, restaurants, and overall concept.
Heads up, Disneyland. We have a new neighbor.
The world ends in the game.
Not from this coordinate, Miss White. They're from California. Ooh, nice limo.
Is there a prince inside?
Sorry, girls, but any interest in a 100-foot grizzly bear?
Introducing Disney's California Adventure, a whole new theme park filled with Disney adventures and fun, right next door to Disneyland.
Let's go see him. Easy, big guy. Nobody likes a nosy neighbor.
Call now to book your vacation at Disney's California Adventure.
Guests would be invited to, quote, immerse themselves in the California spirit. An interesting approach for a Disneyland sequel. It left a lot of park-goers asking why.
Why are tourists going to want to learn about the history of California in a theme park when they could literally go outside the gates and explore Hollywood? They can go, to Laguna Beach and enjoy the beautiful coastline.
I was one of those people who did not think that a theme park based on the 7 wonders of California would be fun. I didn't grasp the concept at the time.
This is what they wanted to do, and they were going to set out to keep guests on property, not go to other tourist destinations, but go see and learn about California in this brand new theme park.
Disney's California Adventure would be divided into 4 major lands: Sunshine Plaza, Hollywood Pictures Backlot, Golden State, and Paradise Pier, each with their own sublands, featuring whimsical takes on popular tourist locations you could find around California. A balance between entertainment and education, the park was planned to have plenty of educational walkthroughs throughout. Whether or not this was what guests were looking for in a theme park was yet to be determined. California Adventure would end up costing the company a total of $600 million to construct. Compare that to Disney's Animal Kingdom opening 3 years prior at a cost of $800 million, and as one would imagine, Disney would have their work cut out for them. Regardless, as an opening date of February 8th of 2001 was quickly approaching, Disney and fans of the brand began planning for a spectacular opening event, not just at the new park, but over at Disneyland as well.
Before California Adventure opened, I was given an opportunity to work a sleepover, I guess you could say, inside Disneyland for annual pass holders who paid to get into the park early on grand opening. They were all able to bring chairs and blankets.
What's it been like overnight? Oh, it's been really, really cold, but it's fun, exciting, because we've been drinking coffee and hot chocolate, so it's gonna be great.
So many of the guests, ended up just sleeping and taking a nap. And the few people that stayed awake just to say that they were the first people in California Adventure, the pre-opening hype was drawing a lot of people to the park.
There's a big grand opening ceremony and celebration that begins at 7:30, and lots of people are waiting for that. We have media here from all over the world standing by to watch this thing.
I was 12 years old when the park opened, and it was a huge deal because for the entirety of my life, the Disneyland Resort was just one park in a parking lot.
So Brian, you were here on opening day, you saw the opening ceremonies. Where were you standing? What was it like?
I was standing right here. So this is all roped off. There were bleachers everywhere. I have honestly, in my entire life leading up to that point, had never seen so many cameras out. It was wild. So much media coverage. But yeah, there was roped off, and we actually stayed at the Disneyland Hotel the night before. And downtown Disney didn't exist before. It was all construction. So we're walking through the constructions, and then we stopped right here and watched, actually heard, because I couldn't see over the crowd, but I was 12 years old. I heard Michael Eisner make the speech, which to this day is probably the most underwhelming speech for any opening of any park ever.
A golden dream that will continue to shine in the hearts of generations to come, Disney's California Adventure.
For the grand opening celebration, a stage was constructed in the Esplanade between Disneyland and California Adventure. A magnificent show was choreographed with dancers, elaborate costumes, and fireworks. It was not at all awkward and kitschy. Just beneath this operatic sun goddess character, you'd find the letters of California, arguably one of the icons of early California adventure. These 10 concrete letters stood at 11 feet tall, weighed over 87,000 pounds, and were a permanent fixture of the park's first decade.
Yeah, one of the things I missed the most about old California Adventure were the big letters that used to be here, spelling out California. Obviously, you know, it was more than just an entrance sign telling you what state you're in, but everybody who had a letter in their first name spelling out in California would go take a picture in front of that letter.
If I only knew this photo op was something that people were doing, I definitely would have had a photo with the letter R. But obviously that's nothing I could do at this point. They don't exist anymore.
Yeah, you really screwed that up.
Sadly, the letters left the park in 2011 as a part of the transformation of California Adventure into what it is today. Back on opening day, as the stage was being dismantled, eager guests would be welcomed through the gates into the brand new theme park. Once passing through the turnstiles, you would find yourself in Sunshine Plaza, the main street of California Adventure. At the center of this Golden Gateway entrance was a replica of the iconic Golden Gate Bridge. Its original in San Francisco, a symbol of American ingenuity, has welcomed millions of travelers into the United States from across the Pacific. The version at California Adventure was about a tenth of the size, and cleverly acted as a sort of bridge itself. The Disneyland monorail that had previously passed through the parking lot would now be passing through the Sunshine Plaza via the Golden Gate Bridge. On either side of the bridge, giant tile murals depicted different California locations. The idea was that these sidewalls would represent a California postcard.
You know, I guess I never knew the concept of it until years later, that it was supposed to be a postcard, because to me it just looked like this mosaic that was on either side of you. And then I noticed the sun all the way at the end, this chintzy looking thing that was kind of reflective, and then it had this weird wave fountain that was right below it.
The sun icon was indeed their castle. That is, if the only qualifier for that status was location. Often referred to as the hubcap, this large sculpture was meant as the centerpiece of the postcard. Imagineers designed the structure out of titanium so that when the actual sun would shine onto it, it would illuminate the hub of the park, hence the name Sunshine Plaza. But they forgot one thing. When walking into the park, you were facing south, meaning that neither the morning nor the evening would get any direct sunlight onto the sun icon. Later on, reflective panels were added to large posts in the area to hopefully help angle the sunlight towards the sculpture, which from all accounts didn't seem to help whatsoever. Underneath the sun icon was a wave fountain, simulating the crashing waves of the seaside state. I do feel like this was a redeeming aspect of an otherwise lackluster park centerpiece. Of course, what would a main street be without its emporium or confectionery? Beneath the postcard mosaic, Sunshine Plaza would be home to Burbank Ice Cream, located inside a repurposed California Zephyr locomotive. Bakersfield Bakery, serving pastries, sandwiches, and coffees, Greetings from California, the park's main gift shop, and Engine Ears Toys, selling generic toys, games, and plushes.
My name is Jesse Lopez. I worked primarily in Disneyland, but I worked one day at Disney's California Adventure, which happened to be the opening day. But then I also started buying into the whole it's opening day, you know what I mean? And it's going to be really awesome. And, they're going to have main street level crowds. I worked at Engineer Toys. Yeah, we could hear the celebrations going on off in the quad area and all that. And then it was just kind of boring. We were waiting. We were oh, it's coming. It's going to get busy. It's going to get busy. And then it was just a trickle.
Disney's California Adventure opened today with fireworks, gold dust, and colorful pageantry, but with fewer guests than they expected. Mickey opened the gates this morning and 800 eager visitors who camped out overnight. Can you believe that? Disney says it will close the park once 30,000 people are inside the gates, but today there were far less than that.
With how notoriously disastrous opening day of Disneyland played out back in 1955, with crowds doubling their predicted numbers, 7-mile traffic jams, food running out, and melting asphalt, the company would do everything in their power to help tamper expectations. Internally, Disney forecasted a crowd of 33,000 people to attend opening day. What they got was somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000. As the gates opened for the first time, there was a mad dash to a few of the most anticipated rides the new park had to offer.
We ran in. Sorin was the first thing we had to do. There was commercials leading up to the opening of DCA. The first thing I saw in those commercials was Sorin.
Located in the Condor Flats area of the greater Golden State, you'd find Sorin over California.
Strapped into bench seats, guests are lifted 40 feet into the air and immersed in a movie shot while hang gliding over California. They feel the breeze, smell the scents, bob and soar with the wind. It's a stunning combination of movie and ride technology, but the project almost died on the drawing board.
After years spent in the concept stage, Sorin, original project name Ultra Flight, had gone through countless iterations before finally landing on a practical concept. One afternoon over Thanksgiving break, Imagineer Mark Sumner dusted off his old Erector set and built the model for what would become Sorin in his garage in just 3 hours. The film itself would feature locations from all over the Golden State: Redwood Creek, Napa Valley, Lake Tahoe, Yosemite National Park, downtown LA, Disneyland, and many more. Sorin over California would become an instant hit. If only the remainder of the park could say the same. Condor Flats, the subland that hosted Sorin, was also home to an aviation-themed gift shop and a quick-service restaurant, Taste Pilot's Grill. For those that chose to take a left-hand turn after passing through Sunshine Plaza, their fortunes were less favorable. Introducing Hollywood Pictures Backlot.
It's a short walk to the glitz and glamour of Hollywood in Hollywood Pictures Backlot. This fantasy boulevard is lined with facades of some of the most famous architectural landmarks in Tinseltown.
Inspired by the golden age of Hollywood, guests would first pass underneath a faux studio entrance with large golden elephants flanking its Hollywood Pictures sign. A tribute to the D.W. Griffith silent film Intolerance, a 1916 3-hour epic that redefined what a Hollywood production could be. Clearly, the stage was set to create a land that would rival Disney's MGM Studios over in Florida. But what we got instead was a jumbled mess of confusing dining, lackluster rides, and animation side quests. The first of which was the short-lived ABC soap opera Bistro.
The ABC soap opera Bistro, this was a table service restaurant, but this was a large-scale, immersive, theatrical dining experience. And this was all kind of born from Walt Disney's, acquiring ABC, obviously known for mega popular soap operas. And those soap operas bled into the parks because if you remember Hollywood Studios in the 90s, they had these in-park soap conventions. They were wildly popular. So I think it was only natural to infuse, you got that corporate synergy. Let's make a permanent attraction and it's going to be a restaurant, but it's going to be a restaurant like no one had ever seen. Guests literally entered kind of a simulated television studio. And you wouldn't just, dine around at boring tables, but recreations of iconic sets from these really popular ABC soaps. So this included the docks from Port Charles, you had General Hospital, you had the Chandler Mansion from All My Children. And so you would be actually seated in one of these recreations of a set. You'd look up, you'd see rigs, lighting, like it was just like you were in a television studio.
I'm Chris. I worked on the opening team of the ABC soap opera Bistro when Disney's California Adventure opened. The costume that I wore was a police officer. Like everybody was supposed to kind of play the role that they were dressed as. I would thank people for coming in. While you're taking a look at our list of suspects, the menu, depending on the personality of the server, they would be totally into it or just doing the bare minimum. It really depended on the particular person. ABC had improv actors that came in wearing the same costumes as the servers and weren't there to serve food, but were there to do improv skits and interact with the guests. And they were amazing. I loved when they came in and they were just off the wall. They would do crazy stuff. Like they would jump up and stand on people's tables. I saw at one time they went outside into the street and grabbed like a hot dog cart and wheeled it in to the lobby. As far as I could tell, it was truly improv. They were just making stuff up on the fly.
And I think what's really unique is we are in LA. So cast members, a lot of them were aspiring actors. So if you think about it, you want to go into the field of entertainment. This is much better than like working at the Hard Rock cafe in Hollywood because you're actually getting a chance to hone your craft.
They had TVs in the back, in the kitchen area, where they were playing the soaps nonstop, and we would get from the studios cliff notes of what was happening that week, like before it aired, so that we could be abreast of what was happening, because they wanted us to be able to answer questions of the soap opera fans that they wanted their clientele to come into the restaurant. They wanted us to be able to have conversations with them about the shows while they're in the dining rooms of the show. The Regis and Kelly show, they filmed an entire week inside the park.
The Soap Opera Bistro, for those of you who haven't been there yet, is an incredible restaurant here in the park where you can go and sit in replicas of your favorite ABC soap opera sets. All My Children, General Hospital, One Life to Live, Port Charles. The waiters and waitresses dress up like soap opera characters. Nice. They act out scenes, they do improv. Now, I went there with Jacob Young, who plays Lucky on General Hospital, and we tried to, very hot, we tried to pass ourselves off as waiters and waitresses. We're probably the only actors who have never worked as waiters and waitresses. Let's take a look at what happened.
So the whole week they had the stage set up. We knew that they were coming in, obviously. We were prepared for it for a little while. But if you look closely at my clip, as I'm dropping their food off at their table, Kelly looks up at me, and I swear she gave me the evil eye, because I don't think she was happy that I kind of interrupted her while she was talking to the table. So no, I was not planned to be at that table while they were at the table. We were not directed to do so. We were actually directed to just go about our day and serve the food like we were normally doing. And it just so happened that their food came up in the kitchen.
Even with the extra boost of publicity, the ABC Soap Opera Bistro was not one to draw a big crowd, likely due to the combination of it being a more expensive sit-down restaurant inside of a theme park, and on top of that, servicing a niche fan base. Don't get me wrong, soap operas account for some of the most viewed daytime television in the United States. It's an issue of it being a much older demographic, with an overwhelming majority of its viewers being between the ages of 50 and 100. So unless you're a stay-at-home mom or grandma and grandpa decide to tag along for the family vacation, this restaurant wouldn't be the first priority for many visitors.
As you probably expected, the Soap Opera Bistro did not stand the test of time, unlike many of the soap operas that the restaurant was based off of.
In just under 2 years of the park's opening, the ABC Soap Opera Bistro would air its final goodbyes in November of 2002.
I don't know if it was any one thing in particular that caused it. I don't know if it was the theming that people just weren't into. The menu was a little pricey. That could have had something to do with it. We kind of saw it coming.
Following its closure, the space would be repurposed into Playhouse Disney Live on Stage, which would open 5 months later. Heading further into Hollywood Pictures backlot, you'd find award wieners serving up, you guessed it, hot dogs. It would be the second of 6 different food offerings in the land, geez. What the land lacked in star attractions sure made up for in spots to grab some grub. Directly across from award wieners was, or should I say is, since it's still there, the land's main bathrooms. Inspired by the Storer House, a private residence in Los Angeles, California, designed by renowned architect Frank Lloyd Wright, which at the time of the park's construction was owned by Hollywood producer Joel Silver, known for his work on Die Hard, The Matrix, and Predator, just to name a few. Silver had worked along then Disney CEO Michael Eisner in the early 80s at Paramount, where they had sparked an alleged feud. Putting 2 and 2 together, one would assume that creating a bathroom based off of the successful producer's home was meant as a jab some 20 years later. The land was actually full of building facades based off of real-life Hollywood buildings, acting as a theme park highlight reel of Hollywood Boulevard. Across from the restrooms behind award wieners was the land's first attraction. This one actually making its way from Disney's MGM Studios, the 1991 Jim Henson classic, Muppet Vision 3D. This version of the 3D film would not get its own dedicated land or Pizza Rizzo. There was a small gift shop, but that was the extent. 7 months after the park opened, a theme park version of the popular game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was added to Soundstage 17. Rather than awarding guests increasing levels of cash prizes, the reward for succeeding at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Play It, would be pins with the number of points you won while playing. Now, there were other prizes as well, like merch and a grand prize of a 3-night Disney cruise, but nothing like $1 million. I actually did a deep dive a while back on the channel on both coasts' versions of this attraction. It's legit one of my favorite videos. It's in this backlot themed area that there were a few different props scattered throughout the land. Lighting rigs, road cases, miscellaneous props, heck, even a ride vehicle from Tomorrowland's notorious Rocket Rods was lying around behind production barriers. Almost as notorious as this monstrosity.
So now, everybody, I thought we'd go over to Superstar Limo.
Yeah.
You know why?
Why?
Well,
because I'm on it. Excellent.
That's right, because you're on it.
Now that's what I call a superstar. Let me grab some popcorn, because I know I'll be seeing a lot of you in the movies.
The worst ride in Disney Parks history, Superstar Limo. It is just kind of the most baffling, twisted tale of how we got here with this dark ride.
Yeah, it was as bad as people said it was. It was supposed to be kind of like the Roger Rabbit ride, but it was the theme was just awful. Like, it didn't look like they put a whole lot of effort into it.
Originally, I believe what the story is that it was supposed to be kind of like a high-speed roller coaster limo ride.
Michael Eisner greenlit this project. It was going to be a dark ride, very fitting for the land that is themed after Hollywood, and it would have kind of like a cartoonish version with lots of, slapstick comedy and visual gags. And as this was being developed in the 90s, something really tragic happened, and that was Princess Diana dying very tragically. And they had to kind of retool what this ride was going to be, which is you, the guest, are the star, and you're arriving to your first premiere, and paparazzi's coming after you. But what we got was just some really cheesy jokes.
And it was just an assault on your senses of just all sorts of kitsch. And it definitely had the most like obvious California references in there, because it's like, look, there's movie stars everywhere. Hollywood Walk of Fame, Chinese theater, all the little things you could think of. It's like they threw it in there. You don't have time to look at it all because everything's so loud and obnoxious.
It just wasn't funny. And on top of it, it was really, really evident that they cut corners and were really cheap about it. They tried to temper expectations. So at the media day, Michael Eisner even said, "This is low tech," to prepare the media before they went in. And that didn't do anything. They pretty much roasted it.
Similar to ABC soap opera Bistro, Superstar Limo would use the existing lineup of Disney-affiliated stars to fill out the ride's animatronics. Not to say Tim Allen and Whoopi Goldberg aren't popular, but they certainly aren't the first you think of when you hear the word superstar.
And so I feel like Superstar Limo, they have this amazing talent to tap into, like you mentioned, Tim Allen and other ABC stars. Again, it goes back to the money. They just didn't have the money to make it all that it could be, and I think it could have been great.
Superstar Limo would see a similar fate as the soap opera Bistro and close in January of 2002, surviving only 11 months in the original DCA. Are you starting to see a trend? Of course, the Disney version of Hollywood isn't solely filled with live-action movie stars, but animated ones as well. Opening with the original Hollywood Pictures backlot was Disney's Animation Building, a place where guests could learn about the art of Disney animation and try their hand at drawing characters from their favorite Disney films. Some of my earliest memories in this park were in the Sorcerer's Workshop learning what it took to draw simple animation. For others, this would act as basically an air conditioning break from the California heat. And at the end of Hollywood Boulevard, the Hyperion Theater, a 2,000-seat theater modeled after the Los Angeles Theater in LA. This particular version would incorporate a forced perspective backdrop on the front to appear as if the land kept going and going. Very similar to what we saw in the Streets of America backlot at Disney's MGM Studios. Throughout 2001, the venue hosted 2 different shows. Disney Steps in Time, a musical revue-style show featuring songs from their popular films, and The Power of Blast, a brass and percussion spectacle that was an abridged version of the Broadway show Blast. It seems like both of which received a lukewarm reaction from the theme park audiences. Because in January of 2003, Disney would land on Aladdin, a musical spectacular, which would end up running for the next 13 years. Ultimately, Hollywood Pictures backlot wouldn't really fulfill its mission of a tribute to old Hollywood, and without an e-ticket attraction, it was destined to remain a shell of what it could be. Imagineers were well aware that California was more than just Tinseltown. As we re-enter the Golden State Zone of the park, just beyond the sun icon, you'd find 5 additional small lands, some of which really push the envelope in terms of what constitutes a, quote, theme park attraction. And you might start to notice why many guests in the park's first few years complained that there wasn't enough things to do for kids. But first, Bountiful Valley Farms, a land dedicated to the importance of agriculture in the state of California. Upon park opening, the land was themed to a farmer's market/agriculture showcase with crops, cows, a water play area called Irrigation Station. God, I hope this wasn't reclaimed water. The whole thing felt like a state-sponsored exhibit. But once you noticed the tractors on display, it became more clear what was going on here. Caterpillar Incorporated, the tractor company, does a lot of business in California, and Disney needed all the financial help they could get. The land would be rounded off with a few quick service restaurants, a gift shop selling Caterpillar branded souvenirs, and I guess they did get one actual attraction. It's Tough to Be a Bug, which had opened a few years prior at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Florida, would make its way to Bountiful Valley Farm. Its venue, a much different design from Animal Kingdom, as it wouldn't be held inside the Tree of Life, this time in a soundstage. It's Tough to Be a Bug was a proven crowd pleaser, working in fresh IP to a park that was otherwise lacking it. With the corporate sponsor footing most of the bill and a recycled attraction squeezed into place, Bountiful Valley Farm was considered good enough to open with the park. During Phase 2 of California Adventure 1.0, Disney would shift from the flea market vibes of Bountiful Valley to the shrunken down feel of Bugs Land.
Buzz over to Disney's California Adventure and discover a Bugs Land, a whole new land for kids, where the smaller you are, the bigger the fun. You'll not only see bugs, you'll actually be one. A Bugs Land, now open at Disney's California Adventure. It's the Buzz.
Going all in on the Bugs Life theming, incorporating character statues, oversized props, and a myriad of kid-friendly flat rides in the new Flix Fun Fair area.
To go from Bountiful Valley Farms, to Bugs Land, which is such a change. It was so shady, which was so nice. Like, you had this beautiful shaded bliss to cover you from the sun, and it gave me Honey, I Shrunk the Kids vibe. So like the playground that was at Hollywood Studios, and that is kind of why I really resonated with it. And again, this was a park that always struggled with what do kids do, because it is adult centric.
Yeah, I mean, DCA always had things for kids to do, but nowhere along the lines is like Disneyland. Bugs Land's really provided a place for kids to be able to just come in and enjoy themselves, kind of like a well-themed area for specifically just children.
Just across from Bountiful Valley was the Golden Vine Winery, speaking of adult-centric. With the backdrop of Grizzly Peak, the area originally featured a short film called Seasons of the Vine, educating guests on the art of winemaking in California. The 7-minute show concluded with an optional wine tasting for guests over the age of 21, at an additional cost, of course. The whole experience was presented by Robert Mondavi, a renowned American winemaker turned industry mogul. The sponsorship brought a household name to the Napa Valley-themed area. It was assumed that this would benefit both Disney and Mondavi, but in October of 2001, just 8 months after the park opened, the Mondavi Corporation turned over the day-to-day operations of the Golden Vine Winery complex to DCA Operations, citing a $12 to $13 million loss in operating costs, as the winery was overstaffed and severely underperforming. Across from the Golden Vine Winery was the Pacific Wharf.
Pacific Wharf was not home to any major rides or attractions, but it did have a couple more pieces of that California-based edutainment.
This time capturing the magic of bread and tortilla factories. Just a quick reminder, California Adventure was indeed still a theme park, even if these lands made it feel like it wasn't. Pacific Wharf, themed after the old canneries of Monterey, California, would provide the widest range of grab-and-go options offered anywhere in the park. Asian food, Mexican food, and a cafe bakery, the latter of which included walking tours to see how it's done. The Mission Tortilla Factory and Bowden Bakery tours served their purpose of the Eisner Edutainment Initiative at the park and got the company's names slapped on the building for what I assume could not have been a small fee. The bakery tour, one of the last remaining untouched attractions, if you could call it that, of Pacific Wharf, still has the same pre-show video, starring a 2001-era Colin Mockery and Rosie O'Donnell walking you through the fermentation process of sourdough bread.
We're here to tell you all about sourdough bread.
We are?
Yes.
Yum!
And for our final taste of theme park educational films on California industry starring B-list celebrities, we make our way to the Bay Area with Golden Dreams. Housed inside a replica of the Bernard Maybach structure located in San Francisco's Palace of Fine Arts, the other half of the DCA version of the building, a mural previewing some of the characters that will be seen in the movie, all gazing towards the mythical Queen Califia, which in the film is portrayed by Whoopi Goldberg. Once inside this 335-seat theater, statues on either side of the screen come to life in this very early use of projection mapping.
This was a short film that shared the history of the state, and it wasn't a cheesy, boring history doc. This is really in line with the films that we see at Epcot. You know, Disney tapped major historians, and this shared the history of the state way back from the first settlers to the gold rush, and it was really fascinating. And I think it just didn't get the love that it needed, because sometimes people are like, why do I want to go see a 22-minute film when I could be, going on a roller coaster?
So I think I'm one of the few people that actually liked Golden Dreams. At the time, I didn't know much about California history, which is really bad to say because I'm a Californian, right? I remember a part of the movie that actually got changed. They had this section where they had the Chinese immigrants who were helping build the railroad. They actually had them on the side of a mountain laying dynamite, and then they couldn't descend down from the side of the mountain fast enough, and so then they showed them getting blown up. I remember even at the time thinking oh wow, that's pretty dramatic. It's pretty gory. They're showing that.
The fact that such a gruesome scene depicting real life tragedy existed inside of a Disney park is kind of crazy. It seems that Disney agreed with this public sentiment, as at some point during the following year, it was re-edited to cut out that part of the scene.
I think it was a year or two later, maybe they got complaints or something like that, because then the movie turned into their faces kind of yelling, and then it kind of just fades into Whoopi Goldberg talking, and I was like, oh, okay, you guys must have gotten complaints or something, but I thought that was a really powerful part of the movie.
Golden Dreams was quite possibly the best piece of educational entertainment that early DCA had to offer. Unfortunately, it was following the educational bored to death row that was Bountiful Valley, Golden Vine, and Pacific Wharf. When originally constructed, the pathway that ran from Sunshine Plaza through the Golden State and up the center spine of the park was an extremely wide walkway. And this was not just for crowd flow purposes. Part of the park's 2001 offerings was a parade titled Eureka. It was a celebration of California. God, I understand it's the park's theme, but this is too much. Inspired by over-the-top Mardi Gras parades of the past, Eureka's floats and costumes maintained a central theme, highlighting the state's history, culture, and landmarks. Dancers, puppeteers, and stunt performers filled the streets as these over-the-top floats slowly made their way across the park. A few performers that really stand out as some of the most ridiculous would have to be the drummers rappelling off the side of a replica of Watts Tower, the Chinese takeout costumes, the Hollywood Bowl puppeteer, or the giant two-person stilt-walking Golden Gate Bridge costume. With this many performers on staff, it was an expensive parade to run, especially one that probably wasn't making many guests' must-do list. When the parade was scrapped in 2003, some of the props and costume pieces would end up over at Disneyland on the back side of New Orleans Square. Try to catch a glimpse of them next time you're on the Disneyland Railroad. In the summer of that first year, in an attempt to keep guests staying later at the park, a fan favorite nighttime parade made its way to DCA.
For years, Disneyland had the Main Street Electrical Parade. And then they took it down. They said, oh, we're retiring it. We're not going to do anything with it again. And then they brought in the Light Magic Parade, or as we like to call it, Light Tragic. After they sold off all of the light bulbs from the electrical parade, Then they put new light bulbs on it, and they brought it to Manhattan. And they ran it down Broadway in Manhattan. And then they brought it back to California, and they ran it in DCA. For about a year or two, they ran the electrical parade through DCA.
While the electric parade was a welcomed addition, it didn't help the fact that there wasn't enough to do at the park to fill the day until it got dark.
I always remember hearing the people complain, and when they, you'd stand there and talk to folks, and they'd tell you, oh yeah, this place, I can't believe they charge the same price for this park when I could go to Disneyland and I could do 3 times as much. And
it was also because, there was just more stuff to do at Disneyland.
It was kind of a joke because it was like people would come over to DCA for part of the day, and then they'd get through everything, and then they'd go back to Disneyland to do the rest of their day. People would always complain. It's like, oh man, this place there's nothing to do.
Perhaps the most anticipated land upon park opening, and honestly, the one that saved the park from being a complete flop, was Paradise Pier. A total of 8 rides made up the boardwalk-themed land at the back of the park, which included some of the most thrilling attractions Disney had ever created. California Screamin', Paradise Pier's central attraction, was at the top of that list.
I mean, it was definitely the premier attraction, especially for our area, since it took up most of the space back there. It looked like a traditional wooden roller coaster, even though it wasn't. It rode very smoothly, and a lot of people loved that. They talked about how, wow, I got on that ride, it was so smooth. Because of the way the inversion is set up, it doesn't look like a big scary inversion. It's kind of in the back, so it's kind of hidden there. You don't really see it. And so yeah, I remember it did catch some people by surprise, but I remember also hearing a lot of children and families say, wow, that was the first time I ever rode a roller coaster with a loop. And it was so smooth, so smooth. That's what they always say. It was a smooth ride. It was so much fun. They loved the music. They loved the soundtrack. All that stuff was great. It's not a typical roller coaster in that it's over 2.5 minutes long, I think. It's like 2 minutes, 20 seconds, I think.
Planning a large-scale outdoor steel roller coaster wasn't something Disney was too familiar with. Of course, the company had plenty of coasters under their belt at this point, but none like California Screamin'. For this reported $50 million project, Disney would turn to coaster manufacturer Intamin to help create, design, and install a coaster that would work within the boardwalk they were imagining. The coaster would feature a surfer rock soundtrack, written to line up with the peaks and valleys of the ride experience. But it wasn't all beaches and cream. California Screamin' saw its fair share of issues during testing.
The thing I remember the most, I worked with this guy, he was like a theme park guy. He would come back and he would say like, oh, they just tested the Screamin' ride, the roller coaster ride with like the dummies, and some of the dummies came back without heads. And we were like, that's weird, okay.
California Screamin' had a lot of issues with the launch sequence overheating. And when that broke down, that's when everyone was complaining a lot, when California Screamin' was down, because that's a lot of people were going there for the first big roller coaster at Disneyland. So
through all its initial hiccups, California Screamin' opened with the park on February 8th of 2001 and continued smooth operation throughout its first season. If only Paradise Pier's other attractions could say the same.
Golden Zephyr, you couldn't ride that after 11, 12 o'clock when the winds would pick up. And it's not even that it was really windy, but there was a little wind meter at the top of the tower that showed indicator if the wind was over 10 miles per hour, and if the wind was over 10 miles per hour, they had to shut the ride down. The reason why is instead of the ride going in a big circle, if those things caught the wind, just a little bit of wind, the circle will turn into an oval. The rockets would not function as they were supposed to. So when the ride would be done, when it was in an oval shape, they would hit the platform and it bounce back out. I was actually supposed to start working on Mulholland Madness, which is now Goofy's Sky School. Was supposed to be my day one ride when I started. They couldn't run the ride because it was hurting people's necks and hurting their backs because it was too jerky. It was going too fast, and when they would do the corners and go back and forth, it would just wreck people. So my first day was standing there telling people, yeah, ride's closed, sorry. It's just that, I worked there a week after it opened, so.
Filling out the attraction lineup of Paradise Pier was your standard boardwalk-style rides. King Triton's Carousel of the Sea, Jumping Jellyfish, SS Rustworthy, a McDonald's-sponsored boat-themed play area, Orange Stinger, a swing carousel inside of a California orange peel, and Maliboomer, a 180-foot-tall space shot ride, another intense one for Disney standards. This time, including Scream screens.
As far as I know, they've been there since the beginning. Yeah, people would always joke and say they're the vomit screens or the wind screens. I always heard that they were Scream screens. They're there to protect the neighbors in the area from time everyone's screaming when that thing gets to the top, because it shoots you up there and then it shoots you back down. It's people are screaming all the way up the top. Same reason why you see the tunnels on the roller coaster. That's what those are there for. Is to block out the screams, because there's literally neighbors right across the street, residential areas there, and they can hear everything from that theme park.
Surprisingly, one ride that did include barf bags was located at the center of Paradise Pier. The Sun Wheel, a recreation of the historic Wonder Wheel at Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York. The Sun Wheel offered stationary and swinging gondolas, hence the barf bags, as some guests weren't expecting such an aggressive amount of swinging. Now, I have been on both the Wonder Wheel at Coney Island.
Okay, so I have been told that this next slide here, or at least one of these coming up. Holy oh my God!
Oh my God!
It's like they're throwing you out. Look at this. It's like we're supposed to be chucked off the side of this Ferris wheel.
And the now rethemed Pixar Pal around at DCA. One of them feels a lot safer than the other, and you could probably guess which one. The remainder of the pier was filled with boardwalk-style games, kitschy-themed shops, and 3 different restaurants. Pizza Mau Mau, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Burger Invasion, a McDonald's themed to an alien spaceship that was also a burger. And Avalon Cove by Wolfgang Puck, a high-end restaurant for theme park standards that was sure to entertain your taste buds and drain your wallet, with some entrees costing upwards to $25. Adjusting for inflation, that would be about $47 today.
Shortly after the park opened, with those low attendance numbers that you mentioned, the other 2 table service restaurants were the Wolfgang Puck restaurant and the Robert Mondavi restaurant, and they both pulled out of the operation of that. So Wolfgang Puck pulled out completely, and that restaurant was rebranded as Ariel's Grotto.
Once they started incorporating Little Mermaid and making it more of a family-oriented restaurant, it got busier, since now you have people who didn't have to either not bring the kids with them or couldn't go because they had kids with them.
A shift from fancy table service to character dining was a welcome adjustment, one of many changes Disney would make to DCA 1.0 in the park's first few years. Another area that saw the late addition of Disney IP to a Disney theme park, crazy idea, right, was Grizzly Peak. Just south of Golden Dreams and the Bay Area is what many would consider the centerpiece of California adventure. Grizzly Peak, a 110-foot tall man-made mountain shaped like a grizzly bear. The bear's name is Oh So May Tea, a play on Yosemite, the national park located in California that the land is loosely based off of. Original concepts of the park showed a few different iterations of the mountain, some of which more bear-like than others.
Brian, is it a bear or a wolf?
Well, when the park was being built, everybody literally thought it was a wolf, and they were asking themselves, what's the wolf ride gonna be?
So is it a bear or a wolf?
It's a wolf. It's definitely a wolf.
I think it was probably the fact that the bear is in sort of a howling position, like you normally find in artistic depictions of a wolf. But yeah, we cannot be alone in thinking this. Beneath Grizzly Peak is the subland of Golden State with the same name, home to Grizzly River Run, a river rafting ride that uses the mountain facade as part of its theming. Similar to Kali River Rapids, which had opened over at Disney's Animal Kingdom just a few years prior, taking guests through the Eureka Mining Company mill, into Grizzly River, through caves, and down into a geyser field. The ride opened with the park back in 2001 and has remained virtually untouched ever since. As you might notice with DCA 1.0, that is a rarity. Also in the Grizzly Peak area is the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail, a large play area for kids to burn some energy under the shade of fake redwoods.
I have personally never visited the Redwood Forest, but I imagine this is similar, slightly, maybe. We just passed through the tree, the big tree, what is it called?
The Tree of Life.
No, it's not. You're lying. Much like I'm sure many of you who are watching, I spent so much time inside the Redwood Creek play area as a kid. One of my favorite things that I'm so sad I can't do anymore is the tire swing, for obvious reasons. I believe the weight limit is like 100 pounds or something ridiculous like that. And unfortunately, as you could tell, I am not anymore. one of the only theme park representations of Brother Bear to exist too. That's one thing that I'm glad is still here, at least in a small version, even though it's not what it used to be. Still glad there is some Brother Bear here at California Adventure. In October of 2003, alongside the release of Disney Animation's new feature film, Brother Bear, the play area received an overlay. The entryway got a new sign and a wood-carved statue of the movie's two main characters, which you could still find there today. Some interactive moments were added to the caves, new meet and greets, plus these sleeping bears were added. The Grizzly Peak land, positioned on the far right side of the park, would back up against the newly constructed Grand Californian Hotel, blending the theming of both land and resort into one. At the initial cost of $90 million, the Grand Californian sure didn't help with the overall budget of California Adventure. The same goes for Downtown Disney, which was also being constructed at the same exact time as the new park and resort. In total, the 2001 expansion of Disneyland Resort would end up costing the company close to $1 billion, quite the increase of the $600 million park budget we had discussed earlier. Needless to say, there was a lot riding on this park to perform well, financially and critically.
Press and media, they were just really roasting this new theme park from all angles. And how could you justify, if you were a tourist, a visitor, spending that amount of money on a ticket when you could just walk a few feet away and be in the original Disneyland park for the same price? And I think it was hard to look away from that press. And and Disney knew it. They admit it now, they talk about it rather openly.
In its first year, California Adventure's total attendance was around 5 million guests. Compare that to the 12.3 million that visited Disneyland that same year, and it wasn't looking great in the eyes of Disney's investors and sponsors. Part of DCA's 2001 underperformance could be attributed to something else that happened in 2001.
During that time period, that's when September 11th happened. That was the first time that I'm aware of at that point in time when the park closed down ever. They'd never had the park closed ever. So that was a very interesting time to work there. I do remember that the park was very, very slow after that. It was pretty empty. Not a lot of tourism going on around that time. It was kind of strange and odd.
When DCA 1.0 opened, travel no doubt took a hit because of what happened in the world. And it wasn't just DCA, it was Disney projects everywhere.
Disney was hit hard by the tourism downturn post 9/11. Many consider it to be the marking of the end of the Disney decade, at least in their theme park division. In the fallout of DCA's less than stellar opening year, the question of who was to blame was bound to come up. Now obviously there were countless factors in play. Michael Eisner's incessant fixation on the park being purely a California tourism highlight reel, avoiding popular Disney IP at nearly every turn. Others blame the oversight and cost-cutting measures of then-chairman of Disney Attractions, Paul Pressler, who just so happened to leave the company in September of 2002 for opportunities elsewhere. And in September of 2005, Michael Eisner would be ousted as CEO of the Walt Disney Company, following a shareholder revolt. This left the California-themed Disney park without its #1 devotee, allowing for the new regime to step in and fix what clearly wasn't working.
One of the first cosmetic changes to the old DCA 1.0 was the transformation of the Golden Gateway and Sunshine Plaza.
Converting Sunshine Plaza into Buena Vista Street would be step one of the park's $1.1 billion overhaul, saying goodbye to the postcard aesthetic and hello to the charming feel of the streets of Burbank, California, the hometown of Walt Disney Studios, replacing the Golden Gate Bridge with a replica of the Hyperion Bridge. The main gate and California letters were replaced with turnstiles that resemble the historic Pan-Pacific Auditorium entrance. And at the end of Buena Vista Street, the sun icon would be torn down and replaced with a recreation of Carthay Circle Theater. Also added to the area would be California Adventure's version of the partner statue, depicting Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse when they first met when he arrived in Los Angeles in 1923. Condor Flats, the subland that Sorin called home, would see a change as well, eventually becoming Grizzly Peak Airfield and merging with Grizzly Peak. Hollywood Pictures backlot would later be renamed to Hollywoodland and remove its entrance sign, including the elephant statues. After the closure of ABC soap opera Bistro and Superstar Limo, the land would see new replacements with Playhouse Disney and Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the rescue. In a cost-cutting measure, Disney would choose to reuse many of the celebrity animatronics from the previous Superstar Limo. It's always a fun game to ride Monsters Inc. and pick out which hazmat-suited animatronic is which celebrity. In 2004, a late addition to DCA 1.0 was the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Located to the right of the Hyperion Theater, a California version of the MGM Studios ride would make its way to DCA, but only an abridged version. This version of the ride would no longer pass through the fifth dimension, and suffer budget cuts on the theming end as well. Fun fact, my first visit to DCA 1.0 was during previews of the Tower of Terror in March of 2004. I actually still have my ticket from that trip. Years later, Tower of Terror would be rethemed to Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. A welcome change, if you ask me. A Bug's Land would survive through the initial 2007 to 2012 park overhaul, but later face extermination with the announcement of Avengers Campus in 2017. Today, you could still find some Easter eggs of the old Bug's Land around Avengers Campus, including these oversized Christmas lights in the outdoor seating area at Pym's Test Kitchen that were used in Bug's Land. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you could catch Ant-Man or Wasp carrying around a shrunk-down version of Flick's Funfair. In 2012, Cars Land opened, taking over what was previously the Timon parking lot. By far, this is probably the greatest new addition to DCA in the park's history. Pacific Wharf would see minimal changes until about 2023, when it began its retheme to San Francisco Square from Disney's Big Hero 6 movie. In 2008, Golden Dreams closed to make way for the Little Mermaid Ariel's Undersea Adventure dark ride that opened in 2011. Perhaps the biggest change and addition of intellectual property to the park was at Paradise Pier. The Sunwheel was stripped from its California theming in 2008 and changed to Mickey's Fun Wheel. At the same time, Toy Story Midway Mania was added, and the land became a bit of a cluster for a while. In that time, the Orange Stinger would change to have a generic Mickey theme, Mulholland Madness changed to Goofy's Sky School, and the Maliboomer was completely removed in 2010. In 2018, Disney would fully commit to the Pixar theming for the former Paradise Pier, converting California Screamin into the Incredicoaster, adding Pixar-themed boardwalk games, new gift shops, restaurants, food stands, and renaming the Fun Wheel once again. In the empty concrete pad where Maliboomer once sat, Disney would relocate Flick's Flyers from Bug's Land and retheme it to Inside Out.
Disney's California Adventure, it's always going to have this identity crisis. So I feel like if you know the history of it, it makes you appreciate it even more.
It's kind of fun going back into California Adventure now and seeing how it progressed from a park nobody wanted to go to a park that everyone wants to go to now.
Being on Disney property since 1999, I've encountered so many people that still come and wear pins that say that they were there for their first visit. And I always tell them how jealous I am. My first time to Disneyland, it was Disneyland in a parking lot. And then California Adventure popped up and downtown Disney. I can see the excitement in people who are coming for the first time and getting to do all of this stuff.
I mean, the California theme is still there. You can get a wine flight, but also big IP has been brought in with Avengers Campus. And I just love, there's something peaceful about this park. It's one of those places I could spend all day in. And even if that's like sitting on the patio at Carthay Lounge or going around the pier, sitting outside with a drink, it definitely still has that adult feel while obviously adding a lot more kid stuff.
Not for me. I liked California Adventure for what it was at the point, and then but now we got to have a character on everything. The Marvel stuff is what it is. I like Marvel, but does it need to be in California Adventure? I don't know.
I mean, it's been 25 years. So in those 25 years, this park's changed a lot. There are certain aspects that take me back to my childhood, but overall, this is a really completely different park. The one thing I do wish they would have kept, Burger Invasion. It's my favorite restaurant.
Keep going on about Burger Invasion.
My favorite restaurant of all time, man. It was so cool. It looked so cool.
Well,
It is the morning after filming all of the in-park footage for this DCA 1.0 mini documentary. And Brian, who I talked to at length in park yesterday, said that he wants to take me on a little road trip. I don't know exactly what that means quite yet, but I'm along for the ride. We'll see how this goes. Okay. Okay, are you ready?
Let's go.
Dude, 5 hours and 59 minutes? Are you kidding me?
Don't worry about it. Just get in the car.
Okay, fine. Let's go. Surprisingly, this was the first time I had taken a road trip through California. And slowly, I began to understand why California Adventure 1.0 was a pitch in the first place. From the busy streets of downtown LA, past the mountainous coastline, we even passed through wine country. There was so much to see in California. It felt like a real-life version of Sorin. Having visited Disneyland a handful of times and never having seen the rest of the state, I didn't know what I was missing. And I started thinking, maybe Michael Eisner was onto something.
So Ryan found out halfway through the drive that we are going to Sacramento. However, he doesn't know where in Sacramento we're going.
So, we are driving up to wherever we are. I now realize what has happened here. We made it. We made it. Look at this. Look at this. Oh my God. Are you serious? Are you serious? So we have finally made it to where you are bringing me. What is behind you right now, Brian?
The California Adventure front gate letters. Original. This is it. So in 2011, they left California Adventure. They were donated to the state and then ended up here in Sacramento at the state fairgrounds.
I mean, this is a completely open to the public area. Obviously, it's probably best if you're here during the state fair itself. But we drove 6 hours today just to see these letters. And that's it. We're kind of here just to see this piece of history, take some photos. Like I said at the beginning, which I guess you knew, I never got the photo with the R because that's what you do. I'm Ryan, I get the photo with the R, and we're doing it right now. It's happening. It's finally happening.
The funny thing is, I don't even remember these things from opening day. Like, we were just so focused on, like, just getting on rides and trying to get into the park and stuff, where, like, they got rid of the stage. I remember that. Don't remember the letters at all. I'm assuming we walked right past them. Don't remember them. I remember them later on trips, on separate trips, but...
One thing that feels weird about today, right now, is that there's nobody here. If we look, it's us. It's only us. Very similar to opening year of California Adventure. The attendance numbers were so low, like we had mentioned, but maybe that's the right spot for it. And I didn't mean to give that sick burn to California Adventure 1.0, but it happened. Whatever, sorry.
You know, the crazy part, what I just realized is that the letters have been here longer than they were at DCA.
From 2001 to 2011, and then from 2013 to now.
Yeah.
And for those wondering, there is a commemorative plaque that does state that it was previously over at the Disneyland Resort. That is right front and center between the F and the O for those who are looking for it. I think it's a good tribute because obviously they would not have these if it wasn't for California Adventure not needing them, which maybe one day we'll get them back. But I think this was a fun trip, a good ending spot for this tribute to California Adventure 1.0. I cannot think of a better ending. Thanks, Brian. Hey, thank you for making it happen. This is it. This is it. Woo! So let me ask you, were you able to visit DCA 1.0, or would you go back and do so if you had a time machine? Please let me know in the comment section down below. A simple yes or no in all caps will do. But it's really the only way I know you're a real one and made it all the way to the end. Shout out to Roosevelt's for supplying the awesome threads that I'm wearing throughout this one. For 15% off, check out the link in the description. Thank you to every single cast member, construction worker, creative that helped make Disney's California Adventure a reality. Thank you to Danny, Jesse, Chris, Brian, and Carly for sharing their stories for this project. Brian was a huge part in making this video happen. I could not have done it without him.
go subscribe to his YouTube channel, The Wildest Ride, for theme park vlogs and other shenanigans. If you're interested in learning more about the 1964 New York World's Fair that changed the landscape of the Disney parks forever, you can find that video right here, or one of my all-time favorite videos over on the other side. As always, I am Ryan. This is For the Love of Theme Parks. I will see you all real soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.